Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the McKinney S-32002 6-inch and a 600 finish, or USP for prime coat. This is a very much discontinued piece of hardware. This is new old stock that we have, and with Bomber, another discontinued item, their 4010-6 hinge that people are looking for. This McKinney hinge, which we currently have in stock, can act as a replacement for that Bomber 4010. McKinney, I don't think they make any single acting spring hinges like this at all. Actually, I'm quite sure that they don't. Although I became aware of something that I didn't know they made about a month ago. The Bomber 7000 series, they have a version of that. This box itself, it could be from the 80s. Certainly, I'm guessing it could be older. It's probably older than that. McKinney certainly manufactured hinges like this. Bomber is the name known. Another name that would be in the world of spring hinges, if you went back a century, is the Chicago Spring Hinge Company. And if you were to search our site under manufacturers for Chicago Spring, you'll certainly see a catalog from about 100 years ago, mid-1920s. And if you spend enough time in the world walking around, you'll encounter more of these spring hinges, and they're most definitely made by an unknown number of manufacturers that would have existed in the 19th century, the first half of the 20th century. New York is, in particular, Manhattan, is a great spot to be able to see a lot of old hardware, and it's because New York is, one of the oldest cities in the United States. You're going to see a tremendous amount of very old spring hardware. You will see variations of this type of hinge in practically every building you go into, especially those that are from the first half of the 20th century and even older. So the point of making this video on something that's been discontinued for decades is obviously to archive the information for the future. But the short term will be to say to someone who's looking, no one has ever called me that I can recall in 30 plus years asking for an S32002. Anyway, but people have called many times in the last month alone looking for a 4010-6. And this video will help us, again, archive the information moving forward, and then the short term of the 48 or so that we have on hand. Here's what this hinge is. So let's talk about where we're going to use this hinge. Why would you be looking for it? If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So I can't really speak to the full history of spring hinges like this, but this hinge you're going to end up seeing in applications where you have fire-rated doors, where the modern template hinge, 4.5 inch in a spring hinge, there are 5-inch tall spring hinges as well, or a 4-inch or even a 3.5-inch spring hinge would have a template pattern for the screw holes. This is a non-template pattern. It is very common for spring hinges. Single acting spring hinges or double acting spring hinges would have a non-template pattern for them. So you're going to see this used in fire-rated applications. There are countless doors that exist today that have this preparation, and I have a client right now looking for 400 of the Bomber 4010s in a 6-inch size, because they literally have that many openings that they need to replace the hinges on. They've got fire doors that aren't closing, is the bottom line. And that's inherently where the trouble comes in with hinges like this. The doors are fire rated. When it comes to spring hinges, the NFPA 80 standard is very clear about what's used on spring hinges. When it comes to a fire rated door, if it's a non-spring hinge on a fire rated door, so long as it's ferrous based and ball bearing, you can use it. It's understood that the manufacturer of that hinge has tested the hinge, or they know that the design of the hinge, so that it meets the requirements of the table of NFPA 80, National Fire Protection Agency Document 80. It'll allow the door to function as it's supposed to function in a fire condition. When it comes to spring hinges must be not only tested and listed and found compliant, but they must be physically labeled. And these hinges are labeled for use on fire doors. And in such a location that is obvious and visible to the observer, that has the UL stamp on it right there. So this is a hinge that's put together. This is one that's it's put together, but it's opened to be installed. So a couple of basic dimensional properties. The overall height of the leaves are 6 inch, and that's where the 6 inch size comes in. I know that McKinney made this in smaller sizes as well. I've seen archival information on that. This is a single acting spring hinge. You open the door and it will just bring it back to the closed position. What's, I wouldn't say unique about this, because I don't know that this, what they call tamper guard, was unique to McKinney, but it is an interesting idea, and it basically prevents someone from getting to that tension pin that's there. It is true that people will remove the tension pin to remove tension from the hinge altogether. An actual phone call is a client has called and said, yeah, I bought this unit and the fire marshal or the insurance agency came by and said the store isn't self-closing, and he's got these hinges and they're painted with 4 coats of paint over the decades. And I say, well, send me some pictures. And it's obvious that he's missing the tension pin. So somewhere over the history of that hinge, someone simply removed the tension on the spring, removed the tension pin. I says, well, let's get you some tension pins and see if those hinges work. Voila. Perfect. Don't have to buy all new hinges. This tamper guard is fun because it not only prevents, well, it makes it less convenient because you'll need a number 8 snake eye driver to remove that, which I have removed here. It's just removed. That tension pin would sit there, which is loose right here behind me. Here. The tension pin, the tampered guard, and then that small flathead screw that holds it in. 3 things. It'll help reduce someone removing it. It is a little more attractive, in my opinion, than seeing just the unfinished tension pin hanging out. I think it is more attractive, in fact. And lastly, there are known instances, and I've been called over the course of my career 3 or 4 times by I've received a phone call from an attorney asking for me to speak about tension pins on spring hinges. People have hurt themselves by making unintentional contact with the spring hinge. The last call was about 2 years ago. Dressing room doors in a department store. Mother is inside trying on some clothes. Child is outside waiting for the mom. The child is being the typical 8-year-old child and just off in their fanciful imaginary world of everything is good in life, and apparently leaned back against the changing room door and just started to slide down to her haunches, just to come to, it was a her, to sit on the ground. Well, she slid down a good 2 or 3 inches before she really realized that she was gouging her back with a projecting tension pin. Now, in all fairness, it was a bomber hinge, and in all fairness, it was not the original designed tension pin. It was a cutoff, it was a nail that's been cut off. This tension pin, while it's not comfortable to do that, I'd really have to intend to break skin with this. This has been designed to obviously reduce that sort of situation, but that's a great reason to have that tamper guard there. Okay, this is going to be used on doors that are, and it's in the installation, it's in the instructions, which I'll show you, up to 4 foot by 7 foot, 1 3/4 inch, maximum weight 155 pounds. This document that's here. So I don't know what finishes this would have been made in the course of its history, probably more than just prime coat. But let me demonstrate to you this tamper guard. Well, first, let me just demonstrate to you, and then we'll switch to the screen view. The instructions say that when, oh, wrong one. The instructions say that when, if you have a left-hand door, put this toward the tension collar. You'll notice there's not one over here. The tension collar will go towards the top of the door. If you have a right-hand door, turn it upside down. There must be a reason for that. I don't know the reason. It might have everything to do with obviously the direction of rotation and maybe the load of the door. Those two must be some sort of reason for that. And we'll at some point in the near future probably pose that question to the engineer at Bomber because he's, I believe, still available. So I've, you know, the instructions say left-hand doors, tension collar up, right-hand doors, tension collar down. Fine. When the tension collar is pointed towards the top of the door to increase tension, you rotate it clockwise. Okay. The instructions say don't exceed 5 holes. If it's a right-hand door, obviously rotate it counterclockwise. So I'm going to rotate that once or twice here. I'm going to insert the tension pin. There we go. And let that rest against the shoulder. Now there's tension on this. I won't be able to peel that open. So in order to install this, you're going to have to first remove the tamper guard. You'll have to have a number 8 is what it is. I've determined that it is indeed a number 8. Snake eye bit is what it's called. I have a kit of them here. And that, I don't know, it's a number 8 according to my kit. So I'm just going to tighten that down. Okay. And this is how it shows up to you. Okay, you've got screws that are included. It's very likely you're going to need the wood screws. I don't see these necessarily installed on steel frames, although technically they could be. I do see them installed in a 1915 construction wood door wood frame. It happens to be a fire door. Okay, so what else you're going to get in the box, in addition to the screws, the hinge. They're sold and priced per hinge. If you need 2, order 2. If you need 4, order 4. Or if you need 9, order 9. And a tension rod. You'll need a tool like this in order to release and set the tension. So let's switch to the screen view and let's go over the information that we do have available to us on this material. Some images, a template, installation instructions. So let's do that now. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Now, at the time of making this video, this item is not yet live in our website, but certainly by the time you're seeing this video, it will be live. The hinges will be there, and they'll probably be sold by then. So let's take a look at what we've got. Here's the label. Here's your part number, S32002. 6 is for the size. For 1 3/4 thick doors. Can you use it on thicker doors? It'll fit. Will it be permissible to use it on a thicker door? And the answer is no, probably not. Prime coat 600, that's the BHMA code. So we know that these hinges were manufactured during the period that the BHMA codes were used, and my guess is that was probably in the 1960s or later. So these hinges aren't likely older than that. Also known as USP, which is the US system that was used prior, after about 1931 and used up until today for sure. Other images, just showing different views of what this actual hinge will look like. Your tamper cover and the snake eye number 8. Removed. The hinge open now that I've got the tension pin removed. Your labeling that's on there. This is what you'll need. If you have fire doors, this is everything you need. That's the part number. Not a lot of manufacturers put their part number on hinges today. It would be helpful if they did. Here's a label that's on the back of it. Some people will call and say, I need an 847H hinge. Usually that will, like a 614R, that's a record. What this is a record locator at the testing laboratory. So if one were to call UL and say, yeah, what's the 847H? What record is that? They would know it's a spring hinge, etc. They'd be able to refer to that document. Like a 615R is a record locator for certain door closers. So you hear those numbers and letters enough, you start to say, 847H, what do you have there? A spring hinge? Showing the hinge when it's open, relatively open. all of the accessories that are kind of included. There are more screws here than you'd need for a single hinge, but that's what the box has 3 hinges in it, so that's all the screws in there. Now there is a link below this video to the installation instructions. Now triplex, I know that the Chicago Spring Hinge Company used that term. And let's find that. Chicago Spring Hinge Company, right there. And here we go with a 1925 catalog. Let's fire that up. There's also a Chicago Spring Hinge ad that I found clearly somewhere, and then scanned it and moved it in. A photo gallery. This is just random pictures of their hinges found out in the world. That's our collection so far. Total of 2. Here's that 1925 catalog. This hinge is not in here. I looked. But a ball tip version of it is. That ball tip version is indeed here. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? 2002 they have in their part number. And I'm saying that's interesting because that is clearly... Okay? Something's going on there somewhere. So there you go. I know that Bomber was private labeling stuff for people back years ago. I don't know that they were private labeling any of this for Chicago Spring Company or McKinney, but the use of the word triplex, the Chicago Spring Company could have been supplying these for McKinney at some point. So this would have been a Bomber CL40. Well, I don't know what this is. This is not the same hinge location, but nonetheless. This page is important because it talks about a hanging strip. We don't deal with hanging strips very often nowadays. But if you are installing this hinge down to a cased opening frame, or a frame whereby, a frame with a wall condition whereby the knuckle or the barrel of the hinge does not have adequate clearance, you would literally add a piece of wood to the jamb called a hanging strip. That's literally what it is. You will see installation instructions from other people who make spring hinges that will say hanging strip not required or something to that effect. So if you hear the term hanging strip, it's literally a piece of wood added to the jamb, usually in a cased opening situation and obviously non-fire rated, where you're just allowing clearance of the barrel. So we're not going to go through this catalog, but nonetheless, pointing it out to you if you wanted to look at what spring hinges look like from 100 years ago. So that's pretty handy. Now, let's look at the installation instructions again. I'm going to guess that S stands for single. Well, I don't know that. I don't know what it means, absolutely. So this is, you can see here that in this typical application, you don't need a hanging strip to go back to that. But if you had an inset condition or a cased opening frame, yeah, you're going to have the need for that. This is showing a left-hand application, obviously. Tension lug or tension collar, your flanges, which are about 0.105 thick, by the way. 0.105 thick, sorry. 4x7, 1 3/4, 155 pounds. 3 hinges required for that application. Mounting preparation. In order to mount hinges, the screw holes must be exposed first by releasing tension and then opening the hinge flanges. The tension may be released by inserting a tension adjuster rod into one of the tension lug holes, turning the lug and removing the tension rivet. Tension pin, tension collar, tension rod. They're using the term lug, rod rivet. On model with tamper-proof shield, it is necessary to first remove the shield using spanner wrench provided. Before removing rivet, take note as to which flange edge the rivet contacts. Mortise, door, and frame for flanges. So do your preparations. In order to get the hinge open, you'll have to remove that. You will have to remove that tamper plate. Out hinges per template. There is no template in this box, but I'm going to show you the bomber template, and I have verified that the hole locations for the screws match. Mount hinges per template, one near the top, one at the bottom, one in the middle. That's what they say to do. That's the way it was tested. Equidistant from the other two on the middle hinge. And continuing to move through this, hinges to be mounted with tension lug up. For left-hand applications and down for right-hand applications. Hinges must be mounted in axial alignment with each other in order. So the vertical axis of pivoting, or if you dropped an imaginary plumb line, that obviously has to be completely adhered to. Adjustment with door and closed position. Apply tension to the spring. So you're going to remove the tamper cover. You're going to remove the tension pins, thereby releasing all the tension. You'll hang the door. Now it's time to reverse the operation. Put the door in the closed position, because if you start to put the door in the closed position, you set tension on the spring and try to put that pin in there, it's going to push the door closed. Inserting the tension adjuster rod into one of the tension lug holes and turning away from the flange edge which contacts the tension rivet. And what they're saying there is turn it away in this direction. This would be a clockwise direction. If it was turned upside down, just turn it away. Doesn't matter if it's clockwise or counterclockwise. Away from this shoulder is what they're saying. Proceed in this manner, one increment at a time until the desired tension is achieved. Don't exceed more than 5 holes from rest position. I would say that if you're going to 90 degrees, if you're going past 90 degrees, you probably want to reduce that to 3 holes maximum, but you've got 3 hinges on there. Be sure to turn the tension lug in the correct direction. Turn it toward left if the hinge is mounted with tension lug up, and right if it's mounted down, clockwise, counterclockwise. Replace tamper-proof shield using the spanner head screw. There's also a link to the bomber template. This is their 4010-6. I'm only using this document because we're not getting these anymore, unfortunately. But this does show reliably the position of the screw holes. Yeah. So this should bolt right in. And it's by no accident or mistake that those holes are the same. 6-inch leaf height. 0.105 leaf thickness, etc., etc. So that document will allow you to know what to expect in terms of the location of these screw holes. Yeah. Okay. I don't have anything else to add about this spring hinge, except when it comes to McKinney, you can type the word McKinney in our site. They do have items in the site that you can review. There is a catalog that you can review here, full line catalog. There's also a 2003 product catalog. There's a 1929 forged iron catalog. And we add older catalogs or archival historical documents when we come into possession of them, and encyclopedic information is also kept on these manufacturer's pages. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. In conclusion, I hope this video provided some type of benefit. This is April of 2022. I do believe that I have a reasonable replacement figured out for the Bomber 4010 series. So if you're looking for these hinges, please, and they've become completely impossible to obtain, which is, it's unbelievable because of the, every time I'm in New York, I see these hinges, and with no one offering them, especially if you get into a situation of, you might be able to find the hinge, but it's not UL labeled. It's not been tested, it's not listed, and it's not labeled. That's going to be the big problem there. I don't know what people will do. I guess the bottom line is Bomber couldn't exist solely on these specialty products, which the name Bomber is basically known for, even though they make standard hinges as well. Hopefully this video provides a historical perspective, at least evidencing the item on camera. I started in this industry in 1990, and I never recall having seen these. Back in 1990, McKinney was involved in Division 10, commercial restroom equipment at that time, as well as being McKinney hinges. But in terms of spring hinges like this, they could have been in the catalog then, but it was always Bomber for us back then. Any questions on this piece of historical hardware, S32002 6-inch in a prime coat by McKinney, how it functions and operates, or any other tangential questions regarding it, please let us know. Thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.